So how do you use credit cards to your advantage? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Once you get to the site, go up to the top of the page and you'll see Ask Bob. Just click through and send in your questions. We'll get you taken care of and point you in the right direction, give you advice, whatever we need to do. That's off the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Well, you know, I think that you'll agree there is quite a bit of uncertainty in this world. But I would suggest that there is a whole section of the financial world that is pretty uncertain. In fact, it's a huge problem that I don't think that people really understand how big of a problem it is. And a couple numbers I want to throw out. 1.33 trillion. Now remember, a trillion is a million millions. So $1.38 trillion. Another one I want to throw you, another statistic. Over 600 million of these exist, are in circulation. Over 600 million credit cards have been issued. And I believe, based on what I was reading about that stat, that are alive and well. People are using them. And then the total amount of credit card debt is now 1.33 trillion. And it took a jump from 1.25 to 1.33 trillion just in not too long of a time period towards the end of last year. I call this the silent financial crisis because if you've got credit card debt, this isn't something that you're going around telling your friends. In fact, I would suggest that most people that do have credit card debt, and it can be for a various number of reasons, everything from medical expenses to lost a job trying to compensate for money that used to come in that doesn't come in. I think there's a lot of that going on right now. But there's a million reasons why people could have, actually a trillion reasons why people could have credit card debt. But it's kind of one of those things that it gets locked in the family closet where nobody sees it, nobody knows about it. And it's not a problem until you have to disclose it to try to get credit or buy something. And oftentimes even then, a friend could be involved and you fear of that friend finding out what kind of credit card debt that you have. But it is a serious problem. And like I said, most people have it, and most people are barely making the kind of payments to get it paid off. And, that is, of course, a really big problem, is that interest rates on credit cards are just, upper 20 percentile, lower 30 percentile. I guess you would call it kind of the average max. And if you make any mistakes at all on that credit card, that interest rate's going up. And it's a shame. It's a shame that the politicians are not doing something about it. They clearly favor the banks and the credit card companies and credit card issuers. And a lot of political donations come their way, I'm sure. But it's a real shame that this is not taken care of. And I'm not obviously not suggesting that even if they could make or force a cap on credit card interest rates and bring it down a little bit, 25%, and put a cap on it. All these types of things could go a long way. The damage it does to the credit report and just all the laws, the regulations, and the rules, and make this a simpler thing to help people get out of debt once and for all. And it is a really tough place to be in. It's a very stressful place to be in. And quite frankly, when you've got that much debt compiled, that you're trying to get rid of at those highest interest rates, it is really, really tough to do it. But like I said, the politicians made a weak attempt at cleaning up the credit card business back in 2009 when President Obama, at that point, just newly elected President Obama, had signed into effect the Card Act. And I won't even begin to go through what a joke that piece of legislation was. And to watch, that was about the time I had published my book about the credit card industry. And so I really knew a lot of what was going on behind the scenes. And those politicians let those credit card issuers take their time, cut balances, raise interest rates, do all the things that they said that they shouldn't be doing, and just in time for a deadline and it put the consumer in a worse, absolutely worse place. So let's talk a little bit about this. Like I said, $1.33 trillion worth of credit card debt. That's the balances. And when I wrote my book, I called it Deceptive Money because it's all a big deception. There's two ways to go about dealing with credit cards. There's you play the game, got to play the game no matter what, and you can either take advantage of credit cards, which we'll talk a little bit about that today, but you got to protect yourself from credit cards. And I'll tell you, if there's one conversation that you need to be having with your kids as they get older and they venture out into the credit card industry and use those products, it's how they can mess up and how they can mess up in a big way. And I know that with my two boys, we've talked extensively about what could go wrong with credit cards, and they've actually been really good about it. I think that generation is really good about doing this. So let's talk about and start off our discussions today with one of my favorite stories that's in my book that features Citibank. And the caption. Let's start off with the guy we'll call Joe. Joe was looking for a new credit card, saw the Citi Simplicity card, and took it out. What he loved about that particular card is that there was no fees whatsoever, no more fees, no more late fees. It was just a very simple card to use, to have. You didn't have to worry about getting feed to death, basically. And so Joe, this is the commercial. So Joe comes in, getting ready for work, and starts to rush out the door. Then he looks over on the kitchen table, and there is a credit card statement. And he panics. And he says, "Oh, that's my brand new credit card. I just pulled over, $15,000 of debt. It's at 0%, and I'm going to get charged a fee." Then he remembered, "Oh, it's the Citi Simplicity card. There are no fees. I'll just pay when I get back. So it doesn't matter if I'm late or not." So he goes to work, comes back, mails the check, and feels pretty good about getting all that taken care of. Then he gets his next billing statement, and it shows everything has changed. And he's confused by this because nothing should have changed, because they promised in their marketing no late fees, no penalty fees, no annual fee ever. And so he noticed that the $15,000 went from 0% to 20-something%. He noticed that there wasn't a $35 fee, which he was at least relieved for that, but he had a big problem with the fact that now this debt that he brought over had a interest rate associated with it. So he calls Citibank, and this is what he finds out. Sure, there is no more late fees, but there is a section of the fine print that says if you're even a day late or an hour late, you will be charged additional interest rates against your debt from going forward until you pay it off. So in other words, we're not going to charge you the $35 fee, late fee, but we are going to raise your interest rates to 20%. That some of the numbers have changed, but you get the idea. I mean, that was a real live marketing campaign, and what the credit card companies, and you can watch this as you see these various credit card companies and their commercials. You can see what they're trying to do. They're marketing to a particular type of person, and they are marketing to the population. This is probably a huge marketing group of people. You got to imagine, I think you'd agree, that hate fees, hate late fees, hate being charged fees, but they're being charged fees because they are violating the terms of the agreement. And so, the pricing and information of this City Simplicity card goes like this. You have except for Joe, because Joe's got the interest rates on there now. But there's a promotional balance transfer that you can pull over. All the new purchases and new balance transfers, 0%. And then after 18 months, that shifts to 17.49% to 28.24%. And get this, very important that you catch this, based on your credit worthiness. Now, you've got all these credit card companies out there, and you also probably have you do have different definitions of what credit worthiness actually means. We'll talk a lot about that because it's something that you need to know. In fact, there's a document that tells you everything, tells you all the sordid secrets of your credit card company that you don't even get until after you have had the credit card for a while. And when you get it and you don't say anything, by 30 days, they assume that you agree with it and that you accept it, whether you sign it or not. We'll talk about that. This is Bob Brooks. We are up against a break. Stick around and I'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question for me, I've got an answer for you. Just go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Go up to the top of the page. There is a link that says to Ask Bob. Click through that, and once you get there, you will see a place to send in your email questions, and I'll get you taken care of. And make sure that you take advantage of that. Also, want to make sure you do know that the Dr. Stephen Covey, Dr. Covey's 4 quadrants of effective time management. I thought we'd have that up yesterday. We didn't. We do have it up this afternoon. We'll have it up. In fact, it's going up right now in the afternoon. So go and check that out. And if you watch the program, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you didn't watch the program, listen to the program. Listen to it at wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts, and follow us and like us and all those good things. We'd appreciate it. It's off the website, www.prudentmoney.com. See, there's really 2 different types of fine print. There's the fine print that says pricing and information, and it's just a couple of it's about half a page, and it tells you in general what will happen. And so the new balance transfers, how much those are going to go up in debt. And here, here you got to think about this: 17.49 to 28.24% based on your credit worthiness. What do you want to bet that it's really tough to get top flight credit worthiness? And everybody's probably roughly between 20 and 25%. I don't know, just saying. Then you look at, and these are 2 different documents, card member agreement. And you pretty much, when you sign, the thing about credit card contracts, that's what you're signing, is one of the worst consumer contracts you'll ever put your name to, because it's one of the few, if not the only, contract that you sign that you give all your power to the credit card companies. And you tell the credit card companies, hey, if you want to change this, that's fine. I have no problem with it. And if you have a problem with anything, they say you'll have to go through arbitration to get it resolved. And guess what? Arbitration is probably the most consumer unfriendly process of legal that you could take it from a legal standpoint. They certainly won't let you sue. So arbitration is it, and it's all behind closed doors. Nobody knows about what happens. So not a good process. But there is this separate card member agreement. Now, after you use your new credit card the first time, you have according to the agreement, you have agreed to the card members agreement once you've used it once. If you haven't used the credit card and you wait 30 days after they've sent you that card member agreement, that will also bind you to as if you signed the agreement. So you don't have to sign anything, but you are, by your actions, saying you do agree with the card member agreement. That's not a half page, ladies and gentlemen. That is 12 full pages of information that you really do need to know, because it's actually pretty surprising, especially since the politicians went through the whole process of accusing credit card companies for doing this and doing that, slamming the hammer down on them on consumer credit card abuse. And absolutely, this is what we're dealing with. In fact, the City Simplicity card, I do believe you can still get that card. And it's got all the wonderful things that we'll be talking about. So they say no fees for being late, but they don't tell you extremely higher interest rates could be assessed against your debt. They have the right, you give them the right. Application of payment. This is something. So you have different types of debt balances in your credit card account. So you could have money that you transferred over, that's at one interest rate. You could have new purchases, that's at another interest rate. They're going to take your minimum payment and they're going to apply it towards the lowest cost interest debt. So if you have one debt that's at 30% and the other debt that's at 15%, they're going to pay down I said that wrong. They're going to pay down the lowest interest rate debt, which will just let the higher interest rate debt continue to grow. I think I said that wrong a second ago. But once again, the application of payment in these contracts state that they can start to pay down the lower interest rates, which will keep you in debt forever if you're not careful. Authorized users. This is potentially putting your kids on, your spouse on the card, them using it. We'll talk about that here in just a second. I want to circle back around to that. Should you use the balance transfer? I would suggest to you that you may be in a situation, probably in a situation where your credit card and the interest rates and how they're ranked and how they're applied might be a much better deal than you're giving it up to go to this other. I know that's the case in other credit cards that I've seen, is that they're still using the old agreements, which is great. Then here's my second favorite son. His mom sent me an email to tell me about her son's situation with the credit card company. He's going to college. He takes out a card. He applies for it, mails it off, and gets a card back in the mail. And then, not 20 days later, gets a statement of what he owes. Now, keep in mind, he hasn't used this card for anything. And he has a $500 credit limit. He gets his first statement in the mail before he even uses the card. And on that is a $20 overnight fee. So they were kind enough to overnight and charge him $20 for it, the actual credit card. A $99 annual rewards fee. An annual $75 membership fee. Total balance that he owes, hadn't even used the card yet, gets his first statement, is roughly $300. Once again, he has not even used it yet. So that's how that works. So the question is, what about putting your kids on the card as an authorized user? And we've done this with American Express and have had a very good experience with it. You would need to call and ask what their rules are about authorized user. But that's where you call the credit card company and say, I want to put my son and my daughter. They'll probably have some age restrictions, but they're not very high. Of course, you got to realize you're making could be making a pretty dangerous move. So do you really want to watch those credit cards closely? Because generally speaking, you're giving them the credit cards to get hopefully the benefits of what you're doing on the main card, because that transfers to those authorized users in the card. So it's one of the things I would go and talk to the credit card company about the pros and cons. I would get the fine print. I would read that and make sure you understand it. And then if that still makes sense for you, like I said, it's been a good thing for my family. And I just would make sure that you know what company, what the rules and regulations of the credit card company is. And we'll take some time and talk through this. I want to make sure they can get through this before the end of the program, but we'll talk about this another day, because it can give a real credit advantage to your kids, and you just have to have some things, some barriers of entry to make sure that they don't hurt themselves with it. Okay, so let's talk about. We've got just a few minutes left. Let's talk about this is the City Simplicity credit card. The card member agreement. We may require immediate payment of your total account balance to the extent followed by law if any of the following occur. You don't pay at least the minimum payment due by the due date. So once again, you're not going to get charged that annoying fee, but you may be, if you're late with that minimum payment, you could have to pay the entire balance off. You have a returned payment. You file for bankruptcy or some other insolvency proceeding is filed by you or against you. You don't honor the terms of this agreement. That's a big, wide open statement. You default under any other card agreement you have with us. So you have a Citibank, AA, American Airlines card, and you do something bad on that goes right to your City, could go right to your City Simplicity card. Let's see. So that doesn't sound too good, does it? And then as far as closing or suspending your account, we may choose to suspend your account if any of the events listed above occur, or for any reason, or for no reason. Yes, they all say this. For any reason or for no reason. They could send you a letter and say, Mr. Smith, you went to the grocery store at 9 a.m., you usually go at 10 a.m., and because you went an hour early, you now we're closing your credit card, and you will never, and of course that's going to go down in your credit report history, and probably a weak example, but you get my where I'm going with this. Once again, it says, we may close or suspend your account if any of the events listed above occur, or for any reason, or for no reason. I don't think they can be any more descriptive than that. Closing secured accounts. If your account is a secured account, you give us a security interest in the deposit account, and they can take that money as well. So there you have it, and of course any costs that they get charged to collect money against you, they will charge that to you as well. So I hope you have a little bit of a different appreciation for credit cards, mainly that you're very motivated to get out of them, because they can be extremely dangerous, and they, as I've always said, they are not there to be your friend. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you've got a question for me, please go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com. We are all out of time, so we'll do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.